My name is Jeff Flagg, and I'm the Economic Development Director for the City of Glens Falls. My role in city government is to attract businesses and other organizations to either locate or expand in the city. And so in that role, I do all sorts of different things. They may range from helping organizations or businesses get grants, finding locations, working with developers, or the different kinds of navigation of bureaucracy that businesses and other organizations have to do to succeed in a city like Glens Falls. I think the thing that I'm most excited about when I think about Glens Falls is how much is happening here. For many people with the history of the understanding of the history of Glens Falls, it's been a town that's gone through some very high highs and some very low lows. As a sort of a post-industrial upstate New York City, Glens Falls has had to navigate sort of that modern transition away from industry, and to sort of find its footing in things like tourism or the medical device industry, or other industries that have sort of relied on both the location that we have here and the natural resource assets that we have. What makes me so excited is that we've been on, as long as I've been here, and I've been working for the city of Glens Falls indirectly for about 7 years and directly for about 3, is that there's so much going on. There's so much momentum in the city, and people are so excited about the things that we're doing. So, we've come out of the pandemic, I think, in much better shape than when we went into it. And there's a lot of really great things happening here in the city. I think the thing I love most about my job is that I get to work with all sorts of people here in the city. When we think about economic development, we tend to think of this as being strictly about working with businesses, but nonprofits and other organizations that need some kind of financial help, or just some financial guidance as they navigate their way through the city. All these kinds of things. I work a lot with developers. I work with business owners. I work with sometimes employees. I work with people who want to locate to the city. As somebody who has been here for a while, I've been living in Glens Falls for about 15 years, but I'm not deeply embedded in the history of the city. I didn't grow up here. It's great for me because it gives me a lot of access to all sorts of different people around the city. And by dint of working in City Hall, you have people who want to reach out to you, and as somebody whose job is to sort of accommodate them, it makes it easy to get to know these people and learn what they're trying to do, and recognize that we're all trying to sort of make this city a better city together. My job is interesting in that it's not really designed to take any of the limelight, right? What my job is really supportive. I'm not an elected politician, for instance, so I'm not. It's not part of my job to get out there and to interact and be seen by the public. At the same time, I do have, I guess I would call, a public-facing position, meaning that I work regularly with people in the community. So, I don't know that I really, to be honest with you, care whether people, whether I'm in the limelight or whether they know what I'm doing. If the city is on an upward trajectory, and I think it is, and it maintains that upward trajectory, which I think it's doing, then I consider myself to be doing my job. And I think that's what I really strive for every day. My connection to Glens Falls is sort of interesting. I came from Ohio, where I was born and raised. I did my PhD in American Culture Studies, environmental history, really. So my backstory is a little unusual. I worked for a nonprofit up in the Adirondacks for about the better part of about 15 years. I eventually was looking for a place to live when the seasonal facility I worked at was closed, even though I was still working there. And Glens Falls was the sort of the natural location to sort of anchor myself year round. The interesting thing about it was I wanted to get involved in the community somehow. So I eventually volunteered and made myself available to join the zoning board, which I did, I think, around 2011 or 2012. I did that for several years, and eventually, working with the city council and the mayor indirectly, I began working on some grant writing and grant administration for the city on a number of sustainability projects. once I became sort of more comfortable and familiar working with the Mayor Diamond at the time in the city council, um, I had an opportunity to do different kinds of projects. I was working with the city on converting our streetlights to LEDs, for instance. When my predecessor in this position, Ed Bartholomew, died suddenly in the summer of 2020, Mayor Hall approached me and asked me if I'd be interested in doing taking his job as economic development director. I considered that to be sort of two sides of the same coin when I say economic development and sustainability. And, to his credit and to the council's credit, the city tends to think of economic development the same way. As a city with a real strong environmental um, incentive, right? As a city in the foothills of the Adirondacks, I think it's part of our sort of DNA, and certainly part of our obligation and responsibility as a gateway to the Adirondack Park, that we sort of include sustainability in everything we do. When you look at economic development, right, we tend to think of those sometimes in contrast to each other. But the city looks at those as being, again, two sides of the same coin. So it seemed like a natural fit and allowed me to pursue a lot of these economic development issues through this alternative or parallel lens of sustainability. I think the thing that strikes me as the most humbling about this job is that there's been so much going on. Glens Falls has been on a great trajectory, economically speaking, certainly for about the past 10 to 15 years. My predecessor, Ed Bartholomew, did an enormous amount of sort of the groundwork that prepared us for that. One of the things that I'm very proud of is that we have been able to keep the downtown revitalization initiative moving. That was a grant that we received in 2016, a $10 million grant that included about 8 different projects. We were fortunate in that we had a lot of this sort of groundwork already done by the time I arrived in 2021, but much of this had been stunted, if you will, by both a pandemic and then by Ed's untimely death. So a lot of these things were in process, but were really stalled at the time. Most of these projects are now completed. The last few projects down on South Street, the rehabilitation of several buildings and the construction of a city-owned market event center, I think by the time these are done, I will have considered them to really be the greatest, most important, certainly so far, accomplishments of my career here yet. I went into a bank the other day, and the teller, to make a withdrawal, and the teller asked me, can you verify your identification? And I pulled out a mirror and looked at the mirror and said, yeah, that's me. I think at a professional level, the best thing that someone coming up to me as a stranger could say to me at an event would be, hi, I want to move my business to Glens Falls. One of the things that I'm so encouraged about these days is the fact that there is so much interest in moving here and bringing businesses here and people moving their families here. And this is really reversing really a decades-long trend. As the city has sort of gotten its sea legs as far as stabilization of the economy, we've really come to understand that we have a lot of assets, and particularly in the post-COVID world, right? There are lots of people who can live anywhere they want. And suddenly, when you don't have people who are saying, well, there's no jobs here for me, so I'm going to move away, you have people who are saying, either there are jobs here that I can do, or I can work anywhere and I'd love to be here. And so, nothing warms the cockles of my heart, better than someone saying, hi, I want to come to Glens Falls. The one quote that has stuck in my head since I was a high school senior was Aristotle's quote, "Hope is the dream of a waking man." I put it in the yearbook, actually, of my high school album. And I think it inspires me just because it allows us to understand that every day is a new day. And no matter what happened yesterday, there's always a chance to start again. I think one of the things that many people don't know about me is that I actually lived in China for 2 separate years. The first time I went was in 1995 when I was a second year graduate student at getting my PhD. And it was a life-changing experience for me. And, there's nothing like not only going to foreign countries and learning about other cultures, but also immersing yourself in that culture, especially a culture that's as different from America as China is, and also one that was both rich in history and in the mid 1990s was emerging. I was so enamored by the experience that I went back about 10 years later to the same city, different college. I was teaching college over there. And it was astounding to see how much the city had developed and the country had developed from 1995 to 2006 or 7. But that is something that informs my thinking about so many aspects of human relationships, never mind economic development, some of the stuff I saw there. When I was just out of school, out of college, done my undergraduate in marketing and business, I was sort of trying to find my right place in the world, and I didn't really enjoy the work that I was doing at the time. And I remember my mom gave me a book called "Do What You Love, the Money Will Follow," and it inspired me to go and get my master's degree in English, which was certainly not something. If you're leaving business, you're not going to be going and making a bunch of money getting an English degree, and then my PhD in American culture. Um, Although I use them both in my current position, I think that advice that you gave me in the book, that you gave me in the advice that came from the book, were really what sort of inspired me to take the leap that I did and have quote unquote paid off in the long term.